So this is Christmas, and what have you done? It's a question a lot of us will be asking ourselves every single day between now and the end of the year as we stress out about what have we accomplished this year? Did we do enough? We stress out about what we ate this year. Did we eat too much? Did we reach all of our resolutions? Did we make all of our goals happen? And why am I buying more stuff? Did I buy the right stuff? Do I need to get rid of stuff? There's a whole lot of guilt and a whole lot of shame and a whole lot of emotions about giving and receiving and having and holding that all kind of collide in ways that are both destructive and kind of indestructive, but still eat away at you this time of year. We want to take a minute to unpack some of those feelings around food because, frankly, of all the things that you could be doing right now to cope with stress eating is probably one of the least harmful. But to be sure that that assessment is correct, we called in the big guns. We hope you enjoy this continuing segment, Lighten Up, with me and Jummy and Dalia and Coach Sarah, while we try to make sure that the holidays are something we can all enjoy rather than just survive.
Hi, I'm Coach MK, founder of the Fitness Protection Program. I'm a run coach, not a life coach. We're never really talking about the running. Running is the tool. It's the conduit we use to examine the world we live in, as well as its impact on our own lives and the lives of the people around us. How we react to certain people and to certain stories tells us a lot about how we view ourselves. I'm committed to the thoughtful, intentional exploration of the importance of running so that no one discounts their own badassery, ever. Final note, this podcast is geared towards every runner who won't lose their home, livelihood, or health insurance if they show up to the corral with a hangover. Not that I'm encouraging you to do that, just saying. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the Fitness Protection Podcast.
The holidays are here, the happiest time of the year, except for those of us who spend holidays in hell. The holidays, again, there's so much coming at you telling that you need to be with your family and enjoy the season and what's the reason for the season and give and give and give, but feel bad about having things because you have been given too much and others have nothing. And all the excess creates this cycle of guilt and shame from which we cannot escape until long after the relatives have left our home. In this corner, we have Dalia Kinsey, the School Nutrition Dietitian, going to talk us through feelings of food and guilt and shame and giving and excess through the holidays. And in this corner, we have Jummy Olawale, who is going to basically solve every problem you've ever had related to shame and food and family and the Christmas time. I'm just kidding. No, not at all. There's very little we can do, but we can laugh at that and laugh at each other and give you hopefully some coping tips and strategies to get you through this holiday season unscathed. Final note, if you have not yet joined the Holiday Strength Challenge, there's still time to do that. Entry is free, but if you want to be up for the prizes, then you have to make a $45 donation and forward that receipt to info@coachandlove.com. Details are in the show notes. You can also find everything on fitnessprotection.com/events. We're raising money for two really amazing charities this year. One is for the Blue Bench, a sexual assault prevention and advocacy group here in Denver, Colorado that has a 1-800 number that is nationwide. The holiday season is our busiest time of the year. Full disclosure, I am on the board. The second organization we're fundraising for is Purposeful Play, their charitable arm Play University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Their kids living below the poverty line, unable to access after-school activities. There was something that made Tiff McDuffie feel really, really bad. So she wanted to fix this problem in her community. So she opened Purposeful Play and then started a scholarship fund that would allow people to make donations and private organizations to give grants so that children just above the poverty line who did not qualify for government assistance to attend Purposeful Play could do so anyway. They would take school buses to attend these after-school programs. So now with the scholarships up, school bus routes are under attack with budget cuts and tax cuts coming their way. We're trying to help them raise money, $16,000 required to help these kids continue to access their scholarships and their after-school activities. How awful is that? We're going to give you scholarships and then take away your access at the same time. Thanks. Which is kind of what some of our families do to us over this holiday season, right? It's like give with one hand, slap you with the other. Let's talk about that. Not that you have any idea what we're talking about in your families, do you, ladies?
I actually had a really awesome Thanksgiving holiday. In the early stages, it might have been a little bumpy. When I first got married, my husband was afraid to tell his family he had married me. So that was super awkward.
Because you're Black, or because
I'm
you
Black.
don't,
Exactly.
because you cook Southern food?
Well, he's Southern too. And I don't know what he heard growing up, but for some reason, he was pretty sure that when he told his mother, it would literally kill her. And she was older at the time, and she lasted for 11 years after he told her. So she was actually fine. But anyway, when I first was introduced to the family, there was a family member who would not acknowledge me, would not speak to me, and had told my husband that he should have told them before he decided to do this, which meant marry me, a person of color. So I would say back in those days, the whole family holiday thing, it was awkward. It was not awesome, but the rest of the family stood up with me and told that family member they could get with the program or get lost. They're like, we may be related to you by blood, but you can leave. And now he's fine. But it took him a while. I don't know what he was afraid of. I don't know. But I say all that to say I had a great Thanksgiving and no diet talk. I don't know. It was great, but it took a while.
I'm sure. Oh my gosh. How long have you been married?
13 years.
Wow. About how many years in would you say, like, you started looking forward to these gatherings?
4.
Or do you?
Not 4.
Just saying. I say this lovingly. Like, if you guys have watched any of the live streams or the live stream I did Friday on my Facebook page with my daughter next to me, she loves the Holiday Strength Challenge because she knows she gets me. She knows how I do. So in situations where someone is trying to like pull a power move or bully me a little bit, she knows exactly how I'm going to react, and she gets really excited. She's like, do it, Mom. Do it. Do it. Watch this. Oh, you're in trouble. Like, she giggles about it. So that's one of the reasons that I think that our families don't do one big thing together, is because they know me too. And they're just like, no, we'd rather not get together than have, MK taking her shirt off and like continue to eat in the middle of dinner, which I've done. Like, the only way to end an awkward conversation is with a much more awkward gesture. And I'm full of them.
Well, that's what I was loving about your creating community around this struggle that a lot of people have around the holidays. Not everybody gets along with their family. Sometimes you have absolutely nothing in common with your family. And it can be really uncomfortable because you feel all this guilt about not feeling closer to them. And you just find yourself stuffing your feelings and trying to do anything but feel how awkward it really is to look in the face of, these are the people that I'm supposed to feel the most connected to. And if I don't feel connected to them, who am I? Am I okay? We all are such kind of communal animals that when you feel like your default tribe does not accept you, it makes you feel so deeply uncomfortable and insecure. It's no wonder people commit suicide during the holiday season more than any other time of season, because your sense of belonging is really shaky this time of year.
Oh, gosh, yes, I know. I mean, Jimmy, I don't know if do you have any of these dynamics in your family? You all seem to be very united community. I love the picture of your son in his traditional gear. Yeah. And boy, he's tall. Boy, he's tall.
Yes, he's as tall as
It's
me.
amazing.
Yes.
Not to say you lack diversity. Your mere presence adds diversity in other places. But yes. I mean, if you don't actually have a whole lot at home because you have such a tight-knit community.
Yeah.
That to me is an interesting dynamic.
Yes. So, because we're from Nigeria, my family live in London. So my parents live in London. My siblings live in London. That's where I used to live. And then my husband's family primarily all live in Nigeria. So we tend not to all be in the same place at the same time during the holidays. And a lot of these struggles that would normally show up during the holidays typically don't show up in my home because a lot of our extended family members are not with us. So during the holidays, the people who are with us are the people that we want to be with us, are the friends that we invited over. And as a result of that, we're able to manage our holidays because it looks like what we want it to look like. So in the years where I have not been able to do the get-togethers, because after I had my daughter, my home stopped being the place where all the parties took place because it was just hard to be a mom of two. That transition was hard. Nobody told me it was going to be very hard, but it was super hard. So all the fun social events that we used to do at my house stopped until this year.
When you discovered Boston Market.
Right. And I still did my Boston Market. I would invite people over during the holidays, maybe one couple over. But this holiday, there were 21 people in my house. And this is usually how I would normally do it. But I had to put that on hold. So my holidays always look like the way that I want it to look like because I get to invite the people over because all the extended family members and all of their potential dramas just all don't live here.
So by that logic, the best thing we could possibly do would be move to Nigeria where we have no family.
I'm all right here. Let's leave everybody where they are and they can come when you want them to come and then they can go back and you can keep on living your life.
We don't have to move continents to take control. What a novel idea.
I mean, I moved to Florida and it still worked.
That's a good idea too. You really have to think about it because I think the best thing you can do in life for your sanity and for your emotional health and your physical health, for everything, is learn how to be okay with feeling extremely uncomfortable. But that isn't something we can learn how to do overnight. But it's those people who can tolerate uncomfortable silences, who can tolerate someone being mad at them and getting over it eventually. Those people get to do what they want with their lives. And the rest of us are beholden to everyone else's feelings. And that is a bad position to be in. Because if you really were okay with being uncomfortable when your crazy uncle or whomever started saying something off color, you could just sit there silently or do the slow, get up slow MK move that I learned this week. And you be fine. You end that conversation right there. But it's those of us that are so terrified of hurting people's feelings or making someone else feel uncomfortable that suffer through the holidays the most.
In the most recent episode of the Conan O'Brien podcast, which I heard last night, he describes his mother was one of the first women to graduate from Yale Law School. I did not know that. And she graduated in 1956 and was one of the two women in her class who got a job, not as a secretary in a law firm. And because the cafeteria at the firm was men only, they set up a card table outside the cafeteria where she sat and would eat.
Outside?
Right? This is 1956. The guest on the podcast, whose name I won't say because she's too polarizing, whether she likes it or not, talked about how that was what they had to do during that period to be like, I'm game. If I don't accept this, I have to go home. But if I accept this, then maybe my kids will be able to eat in there. Maybe my granddaughters will be able to eat in there. This is what's required. I've got to play the game, got to take what's given, and then maybe they'll give me more. As much as I love that, and I did that, and a lot of us have probably done that. We go along to get along. I just hit a point at a much younger age than most humans will, where I was like, they ain't going to give me more. They just trying to keep me quiet. Watch this. So now I'm at a point where I can get really excited about being a little bit bullied because that to me is permission to go completely off the rails. Like, what did you think was going to happen? You invited me in your home. Yay. He's like, did that MK go MK or did that tiger go tiger? Did that tiger go crazy? Did that tiger go tiger? It's a really good way to look at it.
It is more comfortable to challenge somebody's behavior when they have offended you or done something that kind of crossed the line for you. To me, the hardest thing is setting the boundary when they are just trying to love you, but they're doing it wrong. You know what I mean?
Oh, completely. And I can only imagine like your poor husband being like, I obviously don't know this relative who was, appalled at the idea of you being there.
Yeah.
But for your husband to be like, well, this is the person who took care of me after school for 3 years and brought me dinner. Because we tend to think of things as very black and white. If you have this belief, then you are bad. But this person has been loving and has done good things, but has this belief system that is beyond the pale. How do I reconcile that? And how do I explain to you why I don't hate this person and I'm hurting so much right now? Because I feel like that's being disloyal to you. It can get really complicated because a lot of us really didn't, 5 years ago anyway, had no idea what a lot of people thought about a whole lot of things.
Exactly.
Now we do. And there's a whole lot more that's beyond the pale. And trying to reconcile that or just like, why would you say that? That dynamic is happening while there's food there. There was an article that Coach Sarah found about stress eating. And I'm one of those who believes it's one of the most healthy coping mechanisms around. I used to smoke. I can tell you exactly why I did it and why I loved it. It's not because, I'm suicidal and I'm like, ooh, this is a really slow, inefficient way to die. Let's do that. It wasn't because I hated my body or my lungs. It served a purpose that to this day has never been filled. It gets me out of any situation. I'm going to step out for a smoke. It's not weird. I can go outside, clear my head, wait for the conversation to change and come back. There's no other way to exit a conversation gracefully. There's only so many times you can go to the bathroom. So many times you can go refill your plate. So other than I'll be right back. Oh, this is really awkward, which is where I had to develop a whole nother set of tools because I would go get another drink. People would be like, haven't you had enough? I go I'm going to go to the kitchen and get more. I think you've had enough. You just killed my escape route. I'm going to go smoke. How about that? I tend to keep some.
Wait, people literally say out loud to you, I think you've had enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Come on, have you lived in the South and not know this? Until you are the oldest person in the room, you will be treated like a child.
That's true. And sometimes it extends beyond the South, but I don't know. I've totally rebelled against that because my mother is the youngest daughter, but right now she is 65 and they are still condescending to her and saying things to her like, oh, well, you'll understand when you get to be my age because her big sisters are 80s, 70s. And I just can't stand it. I have no tolerance for it. And my mother never did that. We respect small children and give them as much autonomy as possible because everyone is deserving of respect. You don't have to become a certain age to get respect, but you also teach people how to treat you. So people can try to condescend to me if they want, but it's not going to last very long. I even had to set a firm boundary with my immediate family when they used to decide to come visit me, and I would just have to make it work with my schedule because I was just a little kid who didn't have anything going on, even though I was in my late 20s and already married and had a job and had plenty of things to do and had other plans. They would just tell me, hey, we're going to come see you this weekend. And the expectation was that I would be able to just drop everything and do what they wanted me to do because I'm just a little kid. And I got fed up with that and told them, that's not going to work. No, you cannot come. You can come. I won't even let you in. I need for you to hear what I'm saying. I'm not a child anymore, and I set my own schedule, and you need to give me advance notice. Period. You just set the boundary. But it's very difficult to do it before you're mad. Well, for me, it is.
And it's also good to point out something else you've tolerated. I let you put cheese on fruit. You are loved.
Oh my God, yes.
But we still got to have
I took photos of it. I forgot to send it to you guys. Someone actually kept the tradition going. So even though my mother-in-law had passed away, and this was the first Thanksgiving we had without her, one of her nieces went out of her way to bring it by. She couldn't even stay because she has her own huge family.
You know where she got that? This Is Us. She totally stole that from This Is Us. With the shrimp,
they didn't do it with pear salad, did they?
Oh my God. No, they did not. It was equally just as weird. And they left you very quickly after dropping it off. But she probably watched that and was like, I'm going to take her that salad. So you can thank This Is Us for your holiday.
They were so happy to see it. I thought it was a really kind thing to do. That's another thing that's so awkward about the holidays is when everyone's trying to be loving. And when you do something loving, it feels so vulnerable. So you hate to be the jerk when someone else is being open and vulnerable. So I did read the article that you sent, and I love the idea that overeating or stress eating could be a protective mechanism for you. But I also looked at some things from Christy Harrison, who she writes a lot about intuitive eating and attuned eating, and that really what we identify as emotional eating a lot of times is only there because we restrict at other times. And other people who don't have a history of dieting, when they're under stress, tend to eat less. And they have measured that people who tend to binge are chronic dieters. And you may not think you've been on a diet lately, but if you have a lot of food rules, you fall into that group of chronic restrictors, and you are responding to food differently and using food differently than somebody who doesn't restrict.
I've said that before. When I get really stressed out, I forget to eat. I just forget. Or I'm really busy. I have to have reminders. And I know to a lot of people, that sounds really inane, or that's been used to beat me with, to be like, see, you definitely have an eating disorder. And no, I really don't. My relationship to food is a little different, but my coping mechanism where food came in, I would say that I eat in periods of stress, but here's the caveat. When I'm in a stressful situation, or I'm walking into a situation that could be stressful, like a family gathering, the thing I bring are the crudité. I bring raw vegetables and I bring celery, hella celery. The reason I do that is because when it's so much work to eat it and it's so loud, I can't hear what's being said. And I'm very serious. I'm serious.
Picturing you with 2 carrots, one in each hand.
Yep. Carrots, like I don't bring the baby carrots. I bring the big carrots and I bring big, like I might break the stalk of celery off, but I'm going to eat that whole big, long, awkward thing very slowly and ceremoniously when a conversation has turned somewhere that I don't want it to go after I've taken my shirt off. It's like there's a series of red flags.
Well, crunchy food is also good, angry food. Like you'll find yourself craving certain things based on your mood sometimes. And nobody wants something nice and smooth with a kind of mild mouthfeel. You want something abrasive when you're feeling angry. Exactly.
Gotta work it. Yeah. It's like there's no way to lovingly eat. It's like you gotta hate eat a piece of celery or a big old carrot.
True.
So
that's true.
It's not about the eating. It's about getting what you need to get. And if I can't leave the room in a way that isn't going to be awkward or escalate the situation, then celery, I make sure it's right there. So I have it kind of like you would do with was it you saying that you would bring hot sauce places or your dad?
Yes, I do in case of emergency because not everybody has it. I know you have it, so I don't have to worry about that.
Well, I have emergency celery.
But then emergency celery, I love it. Another thing is to remember that if you are not hungry, no amount of eating will ever satisfy you. That's just something to keep in mind, not to feel bad if you do it, but just know going into it that if you are not physiologically hungry, you will never be able to eat enough to feel satisfied. And that's so simple and so profound at the same time. When you feel like you keep eating until you feel like your stomach is literally going to pop, that tells you that you were not eating for physiological hunger. If you had actually been hungry when you started to eat, you would have stopped long before you got to that point, which is another reason why I think it's so interesting. All of the talk we hear around Thanksgiving is about, I should have brought bigger pants. I should have done this. I should have done that. Why did you eat to that point? That isn't typical. That isn't what someone who has kind of a neutral relationship with food would do. If you are craving something because you think it's going to make you temporarily feel better. So like maybe something very sweet, like ice cream or cake or whatever, you can absolutely suddenly want sugar when you feel stressed because your cortisol goes up and you will crave the sugar. But at the same time, if you're eating something really indulgent and you're really enjoying it, again, you wouldn't continue until you feel physically ill. So think about why you're wanting to eat before you start and just know what the food can and cannot do for you. It can give you a temporary feeling of like well-being, but it's temporary. Remember that. If you think that's going to meet your needs, that's fine. But if you feel empty somehow or you're feeling super distressed, you're just going to feel super stuffed and angry. Prioritize yourself enough to know that even when it feels like you can't make room for yourself, you always can. You just have to decide to. And it's also okay if you don't do it every time. But just consider the possibility that you are more important than whoever's feelings. You're more important than your mother's feelings. Guess what? They're feelings. This is your physical well-being. This is your health. Because if this is any indication of how you're going to live the rest of the year, this could really be a problem for you if you were so unwilling to make yourself a priority that you would physically hurt yourself to protect someone else's feelings, that you would eat until you feel like your stomach is going to burst rather than make someone uncomfortable. We have an issue.
I think Brené Brown's talked about choosing discomfort over resentment. And so you just illustrated that point beautifully, Dalia.
Yes.
Oh, you know what? Brené Brown, I'm just taking that one in.
I know. She's my best friend.
Oh,
she's actually one of my closest friends. We've never met. She doesn't know who I am, but we're very close.
I love that. That's how I feel about Abby Wambach and Glennon Doyle. I'm like, we're besties.
Yes.
Amazing.
That's one area where I'm so grateful that we have the internet. So one thing that I find myself doing when I'm uncomfortable anywhere, because I'm an introvert, when I'm in a big party setting, I might be having a good time, but I'm also trying to think, when can I get out of here? I drink a lot of water because then that gives me a reason to constantly be taking a break / going to the bathroom. And it gives me something to do with my hands. And it's never going to make me feel super stuffed because I'm just going to pass it anyway.
Yeah. It's like smoking.
Exactly. With
only
less
a
cancer.
little healthier.
Yep.
Just saying, it's a purpose. There's a function to it. And I like what you say about social media, because I know that there's a lot of shaming that happens around screens and phones, and we're addicted and you're addicted and shame. When it feels like the power structure is we're here and we're going to do what we want with zero regard to your feeling. And anything you do to make yourself feel better, we're going to make you feel ashamed about rather than change our behaviors. So this is one of the reasons why I do the challenge, is to make sure that there is so much going on in that Facebook group that in those moments when the participants may be out and feel triggered and they need a little something, they've got all the MK ridiculousness, both written and in video form, that they can possibly handle to get them through at least a moment or two. I resent the notion that social media is a force for evil. It is an amplifier, for sure. Bad things can happen, but it serves also that purpose. People who feel like they're on the fringe in any given situation can have an instantaneous, immediate support network and connection to something outside that moment in a way that's really good for your sanity.
Yeah, I love that. And knowing that there are people out there that we may never have a chance to meet in person that can really enrich our lives and make us feel connected and feel like we're not all alone. Because no matter how peculiar you are, everybody has a tribe. But before, it was hard to find them. And we don't have that problem anymore.
Yeah. So Jimmy, to pivot just a little bit, could we talk a little bit about how, like, suggestions to deal with other people's baggage other than, eating celery, taking your shirt off, or, going into the Facebook group? What are some other strategies in that moment when you're dealing with other people's baggage and no one seems to think it's strange?
Your facial expression is golden. I love watching your face, just so you know. Like, that's my favorite thing to do. It's like, oh my gosh, yes.
Thank you. No one has ever said that to me before. Thank you.
I love watching your face. I have to tell you that. That is it. First thing is, you need to know what belongs to you and what doesn't. I think a lot of times when we become stressed and anxious, when people are dumping their stuff, I think the last episode we talked about the fact that we're not other people's emotional trash can, where people can just dump stuff. I think in the moment when people are dumping their stuff and they're turning you into their emotional trash can, you forget what belongs to you and what doesn't. And just having the boundaries around that, understanding that just because somebody's lashing out, just because somebody's acting out, just because somebody is struggling for whatever reason it is, that you don't have to feel like you have to solve their problem. You don't have to be the panacea to all of the issues that have arrived in their lives at that moment. Earlier we talked about the fact that it's okay for you to be able to understand when something is it's not yours. It's not your problem. It's not your issue. And if you don't prioritize your own mental health in that moment, you're going to get sucked into this bottomless hole. So when someone is acting out, they are allowed to act out. A lot of times we want to control other people. We want to control their emotions. We want to control their actions. We want to control how they feel. And we feel like we have to butt in and solve their problems. And you don't have to. You can sit there and nod. You can be uncomfortable, like what was said earlier. If you're able to sit in uncomfortable places, maybe it's with your carrots, or maybe it's with your celery, or maybe it's with your water, and listen, or tell people that, I have to walk away right now, or I need to go to the bathroom, or I need to go make a phone call. That's something that you can do. Something else that you can do in your mind is just focus on your own breathing, because that is a natural resource that you have going on with you at that moment in time. Sitting down, focusing on your breathing. You don't have to breathe in the moment, because breathing is an involuntary action. It's not something that requires you to think about it. But if you're able to focus on the temperature of the air as it goes in through your nose and differentiate it from the air as it comes through your mouth, is one way of grounding yourself. Don't get yourself plugged in, pulled in, and sucked into other people's drama. Sometimes some of us The reason why we get sucked in and pulled into other people's drama is because drama is home. And when you come from a family that is full of drama and dysfunction, when you get there, everybody play their roles. So go in understanding that when you get into these situations with family members during the holidays, it's going to be your natural inclination to play the role that you've always played, to feel comfortable in an uncomfortable way in your family dysfunction, right? And so grounding and being able to breathe and being attentive and attuned to you and how you normally sort of get into that role when you're with family members is essential when you're with them, because you can literally see yourself acting it out in the moment, responding the way you've always responded. And when you see that happening, just take a deep breath. Just imagine your feet on the ground, just grounding you to the bottom of the house, grounding you to the center of the earth. And just take that breath and ask yourself, is this my issue or is not? A lot of times it's not. And the role you've always played in your family is to problem solve for other people, to try to make everybody feel better, and you're going to get sucked into it. But breathing and being mindful in that moment can really help you separate yourself from the dysfunction while you watch it happening all around you.
I love it. And that's sort of what I baked into a lot of these little moves. Like the one that came up yesterday was the Serratus Napkin pull. Have everyone sit up nice and straight. Just make sure it's your napkin you're pulling in your lap. And sort of like for 60 seconds, take a real deep breath and just slowly pull that napkin apart while keeping your elbows pinned to your waist. If you focus on that and counting to 60, depending on like if you have facial expressions like mine, it might not be subtle. But for a lot of people, it's easy to do this in a fairly subtle manner where you're taking your aggression out on that napkin in a way that takes you out of the moment because you're focusing on the pull and on that movement not being visible. It's almost a meditation, kind of like a moving meditation. And for me, it's something I find very grounding. I've done that at so many business dinners, more than I can count. And that brings us to the holiday parties that a lot of us will be going to. Speaking of drama, I'm your run coach, not your life coach. I'm not here to tell people to drink or to not drink, but it is definitely a worse idea if you're stressed out at a holiday party to have another drink to cancel out the stress. When you start treating actions like fractions, you're going nowhere good. So it's like, oh, this feels here, so I'm going to do this instead. Like, nope. I used to be that person who would be like, oh, they have shrimp in the crew. That's so amazing. I get really excited and definitely eat too much because it was all food that I would never normally buy for myself at a restaurant. And then I worked in a kitchen for a catering company, saw how large amounts of food was produced simultaneously, and I don't eat at holiday parties in public anymore.
It's so
gross.
interesting.
It's so gross.
Yeah, it's like the more you know about food prep, the less you want to know. I will say now that I really started thinking about, because I teach a lot of classes on food safety because I deal with food service a lot, home cooks do not follow food safety rules. So just think about that. Just be aware. I mean, remember what people used to say as kids, God made dirt, dirt don't hurt, put it in your mouth and let it work. Like it's falling on the ground, but go ahead and eat it. So there are a lot of people who follow that 10-second rule, who drop food and they cook it anyway. They've been walking on that floor. Most Americans walk inside with their shoes on. They've tracked through dog poop. They've tracked through goodness knows what.
I think you just articulated why we have our shoes on though. Oh my God.
That is true. But you know what?
The raw chicken that's been on the floor.
You go into somebody's house from another culture and they will lose their mind if they see you bring your shoes into the eating area. And it makes sense, but I'm not going to stop wearing shoes in my house. I've always done it, but I understand that it's nasty. But it's just, it's culture. So a lot of us do things that don't make any sense that are just culture. But honestly, when food is free, for some reason, we have this drive to consume it that has no connection to appetite, whether or not it's a food that you like. I guess it's a scarcity effect. You're thinking it's there and I should get as much of it as I can right now. If you grew up with food insecurities, that could be a factor. If you don't cook for yourself very often and you've kind of put yourself in a self-imposed food desert, which some really busy people also do, you may feel like I got to eat it all right now because it's free and it's available. But honestly, if you are listening to this podcast, chances are you do have access to food and you really need to remind yourself of that before you act like this holiday food is so special and exciting. Is it what you want? If it's what you want, go for it. If you trust the people who prepared the food, go for it. If there was actually a caterer, you're probably in better hands. If you know that your coworkers are nasty, proceed with caution. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to get that excited about food when you don't really know how it was prepared. When you could go home and have what you actually want, make sure it's what you actually want.
Yeah. So, Jimmy, talk to me a little bit about people have a hard time leaving social situations. For example, I think of all the times I stayed too long at a party, especially a holiday party, where people are like, where are you going? Like, there's always one person that kind of like stops you. And then I couldn't come up with a good enough answer. So I would stay. And that is stupid. I'm fairly TMI. I'm pretty direct. I'm in touch with myself and I'm self-aware. Like, I've been in therapy for a really long time. And yet still, it's an instinct to almost please that I'll practice before I go somewhere. Oh, I gotta leave. Or if I really don't want to be there and I know like my defenses might come down, I'll grossly overdress. I've shown up in a ball gown to a cocktail party before, claiming I had somewhere else to be afterwards, and everyone helped me out the door because they know I'm late.
That is such a great idea.
And then you had to be somewhere and then you got to cross town, and I got to wear my ball dress. I just got on the bus and crossed town and went home. Thank you.
That is brilliant.
That's a great one. Honestly, yes. I may use that in the future. I don't know. Why is it so awkward, Jimmy, to leave? Why do we think we need permission to leave if we don't want to be there anymore?
Boundaries, people. We're back here again. Boundaries. We have told ourselves certain lies about what we should and shouldn't do whenever we're around other people in social settings. We have made up certain narratives in our mind about what other people are thinking about us.
Have we made them up, or have they been conditioned in our family?
Sometimes they are conditioned in our families, for sure. We have eaten that stuff, hook, line, and sinker. Is that how we said hook, line, and sinker?
Yeah.
Hook, line, and sinker, where it's like, it's not nice to get off the table. It's not nice to leave before the party is over. It's not nice. And we've decided about what constitutes nice and what does not constitute nice. And you are not a part of that equation when you're thinking about nice, right? You're only thinking about how other people are going to feel and how they're going to react. But a lot of times we haven't even reality tested it. I'm thinking that you're going to be offended if I leave. The other person that you're thinking is going to be offended if you leave is also not wanting to leave because they're thinking you're going to be offended. So we are all not reality testing these things a lot of the times. When somebody says, well, you're about to leave, and someone says, oh, you're not leaving, we automatically also interpret that as they're saying, if you leave, it's not good for me, right? We're not asking any questions beyond our assumptions, right? So if somebody's saying to me, oh, you're about to leave, I'm automatically saying, oh, they're distressed that I'm leaving, or they're going to be unhappy that I'm leaving. We haven't said anything to them outside of our assumptions. So I'm a big proponent of, really reality testing your assumptions. Saying, if somebody says to you, oh no, you're about to leave. Yes, I am. That is it. Sometimes you want to give your reasons. I have to go and pick up whatever. And a lot of the times the response is, it was so nice seeing you. Maybe what they're trying to say to you is, it's been so fun seeing you that it would be nice for you to stay. But they're not saying that if you leave, it's a horrible thing and they're going to have a bad day and you're going to be a horrible person. Again, where does your brain go when you get anxious?
Well, some parties, like when I think about like some of the company Christmas parties, for example, like the one I have to go to this one next week with my husband, and I have to.
Your face.
I get to wear a ball gown. I get to wear my ball gown, and we're going to leave by 9, and it's going to be fine. But very excited. It's hanging behind me back there. There's always someone that's like, oh, come on, have one more. The party's just started. And I think it's just, oh, that's just really cute. Like that makes us feel nice. But then I've said no 3 times. We're still leaving. And now it's awkward. In that type of scenario, how do we, because again, this is when the alcohol is specifically flowing. This is one of the reasons I put the ball gown on. I'd be like, I've got to be somewhere else at 8. So if I show up at 5, there's no way, like people will be helping me out the door by 7:15, and not that dynamic. Somebody will stop that dynamic. Where if I try to stop that dynamic, it's just going to escalate, especially if it's a man. That ball gown's sort of like a suit of armor. funny enough, where people will just step in and help me in situations where they otherwise wouldn't. They're doing all the work.
Oh, that is so funny and so gendered too, that to empower yourself as a woman, where we are right now in this country, you're in a position where you need help and then you're able to get what you want. Whereas a man in that same situation, if he wanted to go, you know what he would do? He would just leave. So I've been taking a lot of notes from the dudes lately. We have a friend, this is a like baby boomer white male, and it is hilarious to me how he leaves events. We hang out with him on and off all the time. He's a nice person. But when he's done, he's done. You could be in the middle of a sentence and he'll put his beer down and he'll say, I'll see y'all later. It doesn't matter if we are just starting a football game. It doesn't matter if it's the middle of the game. When he's done, he's gone. Just like that. You know, maybe once or twice people have been offended, but they have either gotten used to it or they're not friends with Dan anymore, because those are your options. Because he is who he is and your feelings are your feelings and he didn't ask you about them. He's ready to go. And so he's going. He never says where he's going. He never says he needs to leave. He says, I'll see y'all later.
I love it.
And we're just used to it. We're just like, oh, he's gone. Oh, well.
I love it. I love it. In fairness, I think that is harder for women, for sure.
Yeah.
Because the expectations on us to be, again, back to the nice thing.
Are you mad? Are you mad? Yeah. Are you mad at me?
Right.
Do I drink too much? Does food not taste good?
Wrong to
Do you hate my shirt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have
fun?
fun?
Did she piss you off? Yeah.
Yeah. But again, you said something earlier, like MK, about somebody coming and asking you over and over and over and over again. We have to understand that even when you're trying to set boundaries, it doesn't mean that other people are good at boundary setting, right? So unboundaried people just don't understand boundaries. It doesn't mean that you don't get to set yours. And I think your friend, Dalia, is a perfect example. He set his own boundaries. Now, in fairness, that's harder for a woman to do. It doesn't mean that it's not something that you can do in your own way. Even the dress that you wear, MK, to those parties is a way of setting your own boundaries. I mean, when we think of boundary setting, we think too hard about these things. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, okay, I'm going to leave at 8:00 and I'm going to wear this dress, and everybody's going to understand, like, yeah, for sure, I'm overdressed, I'm going somewhere, and they're going to be like, okay, let me help you out of this. Let me help you out of this party in that dress. But there are people who don't know how to set boundaries, and they're going to expect things of you that you don't want to do. It's not a reason for you not to set yours and say, hold firm to your place and say, no, I don't want any more drink. I have to leave for whatever reason. It's time for me to go, and that you leave. But if you wait for people to be good at accepting your boundaries when you draw them, you're going to wait for a long time, because people typically don't respond very well to your boundaries being set. And that's why we typically don't like setting them.
It can also escalate situations really quickly when you're trying to do the opposite. Now you said no, and that makes me angry. And we don't accept that from women the way we do from men.
That is true. And that's another thing too. Like, the last thing we need to do is take this as another way to feel wrong. Like, just because I think it's helpful for people to put themselves first, and I feel like that's my purpose in life, is that as I age, I intend to be more and more free. And to me, that looks like being where I want to be, around the people I want to be around, doing the things I want to do. To other people, that sounds selfish or that doesn't align with their core values. Everybody has different core values. And I think we should all look at what is really important to us. If preserving certain relationships is really, really a high priority for you, or if the work culture where you are does not allow for you to leave parties early, then you need to factor all those things in. No one can really tell you what you should be doing. But I do think it's helpful to hear how different people are coping. But by no means is this another way for you to should yourself, into feeling guilty.
And if you can't do it on your own, hear my voice telling you, there are all kinds of situations where I will walk into them with a teammate, because I know that my no will not be respected or accepted, and it will only escalate. So I make my husband do it. Like, I'll be like, oh, we're leaving. And my husband's like, we have to go. Thank you so much for a lovely evening. And we'll just because no one will talk back to him or question him. I've had to do this at doctors. He takes the kids to the pediatrician now because they don't listen to me. He comes to the doctor with me sometimes. It's kind of amazing. The more strong-willed you are perceived to be, the more people want to just argue with you. It's a very odd thing. So this is part of my carefully crafted persona, like wearing the dress. The more out of place you look as a strong-willed person, the less likely people are to talk to you. And it works.
Yeah. I like that. That's such a tangible thing to do. That's why I'm loving your challenge, is that it has all these practical, physical things you can actually do, which apparently is the magic of charm school, which I didn't go to. And I thought it was really antiquated. I was like, who does that? But apparently it's full of great stuff. And you know which fork to use first and everything. And no, not that part.
No, I don't know that. I still don't know. I know I'm supposed to work my way from the outside from watching Pretty Woman, and that's kind of like, I'm from the rural South. I never eaten nowhere that fancy. We're with what's a salad?
All of a sudden, everywhere I go, everybody's eating in courses. I don't know when we started doing that. It's nice, and it's perfect for the fact that it takes you 20 minutes to know that you're full if you were ever hungry in the first place. So eating in courses is a great idea, but I just didn't know we were doing that now, and it's a whole thing. But I like that you have tangible things that you can tell people you can do this and it may help. And going back to what Jummy was saying about the mindfulness, I think it's really helpful if you are about to binge or you're feeling like you're not hungry, but you suddenly feel compelled to eat. You can tell the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger by how quickly it comes on, because physical hunger ebbs and flows. Like, you'll get busy doing something and suddenly you forget to eat. If you suddenly feel hungry and you have a specific craving, you probably aren't physically hungry, because when you're physically hungry, you'll probably eat anything. But even if you know it's emotional and you're going to eat anyway, before you do, try some breathing exercises. There's one that I like to do where you hold your breath for 10 seconds. And then you exhale slowly for 10 seconds. And you do that like 3 or 5 times, and then decide what you want to do. Just pause. But beyond pausing, don't feel guilty about what you decide to do after that.
I love that. I really, really, really love that. I was in cognitive behavioral therapy for a while, and my therapist would say to me, what am I responding to? Tell me what you were responding to in that moment. I don't know if you've ever done cognitive behavioral therapy. It is maddening. They interrupt you and change. Like, I will go in there and not even tell a full story because I'm interrupted so much, because she challenges the way I perceive what I'm doing and what happened. You have to be ready for it when you can learn to work with it. It's an incredible tool, because that's how I'm now able to say, what do I really need to get? What am I really responding to? Is my response going to get me what I want? Probably not. Unfortunately, it did lead me to wearing ball gowns to cocktail parties, but I always get what I want. People might think that I'm crazy, but that's just easier to dismiss me than to say, maybe no one hears it when she says no.
Yeah. And that is a mouthful. Like, that is such a problem. But at the same time, we're not going to change the world in between now and January 1st. So What do you need to do to keep yourself sane in between now and then is the question.
Well, we can give you all kinds of tips and tricks for that in the Holiday Strength Challenge. For a $45 donation, we can change the life of a child in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, by continuing their access to after-school activities with the bus that we hope to help them purchase. And it can also keep funding that 1-800 number here in Denver for trauma survivors to get the support they need that they might not be getting from their families, and also for individuals who might not be able to access or afford therapy anywhere, really. That 1-800 number goes all over the country, but we also work with survivors directly in the Denver area. Thank you so much, Dalia and Jimmy.
Thank you for having us.
Amazing.